story to my reasons for becoming a sociologist. And so I'll just share part of what I wrote for the Journeys to Purpose, and it is called Finding Myself in Sociology. Excuse me. One of my earliest memories is of a conversation with my dad when I was about 6 or 7. "Daddy, what's a mutt?" I asked after reading a book about dogs. A stern look came over his face that confused me. "Why?" he said. "Did somebody call you that?" I remember being confused. I thought we were talking about dogs. "No, why would somebody call me that? In the book, they were talking about dogs." Dad relaxed a little and explained that mutt is a word that means mixed breed dog. While I learned a new vocabulary word that day, I also learned something else. I learned that for some reason, people might use this word to refer to me. The idea that someone would do that clearly made my dad angry, but I didn't yet understand why. It wasn't until I was much older that I understood at all why someone might call me a mutt or why my dad would be angry if they did. You see, my Mexican-American dad married my Anglo mother in 1969 in California. As a Mexican-American man growing up in the 50s and 60s in California, my dad was familiar with his share of racial slurs. Social scientists use the word exogamy to refer to marrying outside of one's social group. Interracial marriages, like my parents', were outlawed in many states until the 1967 Supreme Court case, Loving versus Virginia, just 2 years before my parents were married. Thus, the conversation I had with my dad as a child hit a nerve for him that I had not known existed. As a consequence of this conversation and others, I became very interested in issues of race and the experiences of Latinx people in the US. As I got older, I would read books about the Mexican-American, African-American, and Native American civil rights movement, all outside of school because this was not part of the curriculum in my small South Texas public school. I was inspired by these activists who saw an injustice in the world and worked to make things better, not just for themselves, but for everyone. But I didn't really know what to do with this information until I was in college. My high school didn't offer any sociology classes, so I didn't have the opportunity to learn about sociology until college. My boyfriend at the time, now my husband, was a sociology major and suggested that I might enjoy taking a class in it, and I was hooked from the beginning. Here were the tools I needed to understand my own family's experiences. A key concept in sociology is the sociological imagination, or the ability to comprehend the ways that social structures or institutions, like the economy, the education system, and the legal system, impact the lives of individuals. I also learned that certain social categories, such as race, class, gender, and sexuality, shape the opportunities, challenges, and experiences that individuals experience within these institutions. Thus, my father's standpoint, or social location, as a poor Mexican-American man, impacted his experiences, such as the discrimination he experienced in the educational system and the economy. It also shaped how he saw the world, i.e. as a place in which his biracial daughter might not be safe. My father was born in 1946 and grew up in California in the 40s and 50s. 1 year after he was born, the Ninth Federal Circuit Court of Appeals and the Governor Earl Warren found that the system of segregating Mexican-American children from Anglo children was unconstitutional in schools. The case, Mendez v. Westminster, was a landmark case that served as a precedent for Brown versus Board of Education. Thus, my father was fortunate to grow up in a time when segregated schools were not legal in California. But unfortunately, this did not mean that Mexican-American children and Anglo children were given equal treatment or equal accesses to resources. When my father started kindergarten in 1951, he only spoke Spanish. He used to tell a story about how some kid named John always got him in trouble. He would joke about it. My dad's name was Juan. He didn't understand when he was a child that his name had been anglicized to John and that he was getting in trouble for not responding to John. He told me about how he was punished in school for speaking Spanish. Thus, he made certain that only English was spoken in our home to protect me from being similarly treated. What I learned from studying sociology and history is that my father's story is not unique. In fact, it is representative of the Latinx experiences in his generation. Seen as not true Americans, many, like my father, strived to be American beyond dispute. They, like my father, many sought to escape discrimination by transforming themselves. They learned to speak English perfectly. They served in the military during Vietnam and other wars. They assimilated to the best of their abilities, all the while still experiencing discrimination in the workplace, in the schools, and in their communities. Others of his generation this systematic inequality by building the Mexican-American civil rights movement of the 1960s. These activists protested publicly against the continued discrimination of Latinx people in society. Studying sociology allowed me to be able to situate my father's experience and my own within this historical context, and to understand how our lives have been and continue to be influenced by the ways that society people of color unequally. As a result, I feel strongly that I am called to share these sociological tools with others so that they too can better understand their experiences and the experiences of those who they may see as different from themselves. Understanding how society shapes our own perspectives provides insight into the ways that others may have significantly different perspectives based on quite different experiences. Furthermore, not only do these societal level factors impact our individual experiences, they also shape our very identities. My father's identity and worldview was shaped in part by his early experiences of discrimination. It impacted how he parented me, and those experiences thus had an intergenerational impact. I was an inquisitive child, so I must have asked my parents for definitions of hundreds of words while growing up. I don't remember those conversations. I remember the conversation about the word mutt like it happened yesterday, though. It marks my earliest awareness of the reality that people will see me as different, as being an outsider. Thus, my father's experiences shape not only his identity, but mine as well. And I'm going to stop there in the piece, but I just wanted to share that it wasn't until I actually sat down to write this that I was able to really think about the impact of these experiences of my father's and my own, and how it shaped my choice to go into sociology, what sociology did for me personally, and why I do it, right? And so writing can be this very transformative experience where you suddenly investigate yourself and your own experiences in a way that we don't necessarily do on a day-to-day basis. Before I wrote this piece, if you asked me, why did you decide to become a sociologist? My answer was, well, I took some classes in college and I really liked it. So that's why I became a sociologist. But when I sat down to write the piece, I realized that I was always a sociologist. I didn't know it yet until I had the opportunity to take the classes and really learn. And so the writing of this piece helped me sort of put those two stories together and realize that connection in my own life. And so that's what I have to share for today.